Mr. Akras.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Welcome to the Board of Liquor License Commissioners for Baltimore City's morning docket. Today is Thursday, July 26, 2018. This morning, we're going to be hearing regular items, new transfer, expansion, and hardship applications. If you have an electronic device, I'd ask that you please turn it off, silence it, or put it on vibrate. When your case is called, please step forward, state your name into the microphone, and if you're going to be providing testimony, please be prepared to be sworn in. Mr. Chair, if I may call the second case first.
Please do.
Calling Karen Tiffany and Herbert T. Tiffany III, Peters Inn Incorporated, trading as Peters Inn, 504 South Ann Street. This is a Class D beer, wine, and liquor license, a request for hardship extension under the provisions of the Alcoholic Beverages Article, Section 122202.
Folks, would you please raise your right hands?
You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Are you Herbert Tiffany?
I am.
Are you Karen Tiffany?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So you've written us a letter and you've requested a hardship extension due to a fire that
Yes.
occurred just at the end of last year?
Correct.
Okay, and what's the status of your operation at this point?
We expect to be reopened within 45 days of today.
Okay.
They're actually, doing the flooring today.
Okay. Commissioners have questions?
I don't have any questions.
No questions.
Okay. On the basis then of your request and your testimony, I would vote to approve the extension. It is for Mr. Akras, 180 days?
180 days.
180 days from today.
Right.
Good luck.
Great, thank you so much.
Thanks.
I
You
concur.
need to hear from the other commissioners.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're wild card. Sometimes we're wild cards. You never know on these.
One of the few places where we still have democracy.
I concur with the judge's finding as well.
I too agree to grant the hardship extension. Your request was timely, and hopefully it can get addressed as soon as possible. Good luck.
Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well said.
That's it.
Well, maybe. Yeah, we're.
Thank you.
No exhibits.
Calling the next case, Arsh Mirman. I'm sorry. Sorry. Apologize. Calling the next case, Arsh Mirman, CSM Ventures LLC, trading as Cross Street Market, 1065 South Charles Street. This is a Class B PML beer, wine, and liquor public market license. It's an application for a new Class B PML beer, wine, and liquor public market license under the provisions of the Alcoholic Beverages Article, Section 121002.1, requiring the applicant to be an operator of the enclosed public market, $3 million in capital investment, a specified location of the market, and the request is for a Class B PML beer, wine, and liquor license that would allow on-premise consumption, off-premise consumption sales, requesting outdoor table service, and off-premise catering.
Would all those who are interested in addressing the board with respect to this application come forward now, please? And anyone who's going to testify, I ask that you raise your right hand.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Counsel?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Joseph R. Woolman. I represent the applicant in this matter. As a preliminary matter, we did receive this morning another letter of support. I have a copy for you as well as a copy for counsel from City Council President Jack Young.
Thank you. We'll make this a part of the record.
Mr. Priebus.
Are you involved in this case?
I am tangentially.
Are there witnesses on your side of the case?
I'm not,
Or are you bringing any testimony before the board?
probably not. I just have one technical issue with the application.
Okay, all right. Okay.
I also have an exhibit packet that I'll introduce at this time for the record. These are marked exhibits 1A through D. I have original footage Chairman, and copies for the members.
Thank you, that'll be received.
And for staff.
Thank you.
And then we also have exhibits marked, I believe we've marked them, or will mark them, Exhibit 2, and they are renderings and floor plans. Smaller versions of these were included in the application. But floor plan in particular is difficult to read on a smaller scale, so.
You want me to put this up?
Yes, please, thank you.
Okay, that's fine.
And there's also some interior renderings as well, if you care to see those at the juncture.
Okay, you want to walk us through that then?
Certainly. With me today is Michael Morris from Cana Development, as well as Arsh Murmuran, who is the applicant and representing the operator CSM Ventures. As you know, this is a application for a Class B PML license, which is certainly unique, and it's the only Class B PML license that exists in the state law. As you know, the address of the premises is 1065 South Charles Street, better known as the Cross Street Market. And if you'll bear with me, since this is a new license category and a rather unique license with various restrictions placed upon it after a long, long process, I'll walk the board through that statute. Section 12-1002.1 B, C, and D list the requirements for a new Class B PML license. They are as follows. Section B, authorized holder. The board may issue the license only to an operator of an enclosed public market that, one, has a capital investment of at least $3 million, and two, is located in an area surrounded by Charles Street on the west, East Cross Street on the north, Light Street on the east, and East Cross Street on the south. This is located in Ward 23, Precinct 1 of the 46 Alcoholic Beverage District. Section C, separate premises. The premises for which the public market license is issued shall be separate from the premises for which a Class D 7-day beer and wine license has been issued. And in transfer, there's limits on transfer. The ownership of the license is transferable only to the Baltimore Public Markets Corporation. There are additional restrictions within the statute under 12-1002.1 E, F, and G. They are as follows. E, scope of authorization. The license authorized the license holder to sell for on or off premises consumption beer, wine, and liquor when served as an ingredient in mixed drinks that may be purchased for at least $5 each. And I'll have Mr. Morris, when he talks about the operation of the market, elaborate on that restriction. E2, subject to paragraph 2 of this paragraph, the license holder may designate vendors within the public market to sell alcoholic beverages that are allowed under paragraph 1 of this subsection in leasable market space covering not more than 20% of the total square footage of the floor space of the licensed premises. And an individual vendor may sell alcoholic beverages in an area covering not more than 1,000 square feet of floor space. Section 3, the license holder shall submit to the board the same information about each vendor that the board requires of an application for license, and that's obviously prior to issuance. The board shall apply to the Central Repository for a state and national criminal history records check for each vendor authorized to sell alcoholic beverages, and a vendor authorized to sell alcoholic beverages or an individual is designated by the vendor and employed in a supervisory capacity is required to be certified by an approved alcohol awareness program and present when alcoholic beverages are consumed.
So if we issue the license, or if we authorize the issuance of the license, ultimately the vendors will have to be vetted through that process.
That is exactly correct, Mr. Chairman. And if I may elaborate a little bit further, we will be working with the staff of the BLLC to come up with vendor application forms that must be complied with. And obviously there's additional processes to be followed after the authorization is hopefully at our request granted.
I think we understand that.
Thank you. Again, Section 4, subject to paragraph 2 of the paragraph, monthly receipts from the sale of non-alcoholic beverage items shall be at least 65% of the total monthly receipts of the market. And 2, the only non-alcoholic beverage items that may be counted in this calculation are items sold in the public market that are not provided as part of an off-premises catering service. Section F, there's limitations. A license holder or vendor may not participate in or publicize in or outside the public market a pub crawl authorized under 12-1101.1 of this title, Or 2, except for an event closed to the public, including a rehearsal dinner, wedding reception, corporate function, or retirement party, allow an open bar to be operated by a vendor. Section G is the restriction on the hours of operation. The hours of sale of alcoholic beverages for on-premises consumption are as follows: from 11:30 a.m. to 10 p.m., Monday through Thursday, from 11:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. on Friday, from 9 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. on Saturday, and from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Sunday. As I indicated before, Mr. Morris is here from Canada Development. They are extremely experienced in market developments around the country, frankly, and he's here to describe to you the premises, which I've mentioned is at 1065 South Charles Street, the Cross Street Market, and answer any questions you have regarding the renderings of the floor plan, et cetera.
And the location hasn't changed.
The location has not changed.
What's the square footage of the location?
Total square footage?
Total building's 30,000 square feet.
Gentlemen, when you testify, try to come up to the microphone, because we are being recorded and televised, and if you haven't given your name, the gentleman to my far left is going to ask you to give you.
Sure. My name is Michael Morris with Cana Development.
And I don't know if the board has any particular questions. We've submitted the floor plans and the renderings in the past. If you have questions about the premises, the plans, which are still being finalized. We also, in the Exhibit 1 packet, I've included a spreadsheet, which I believe is listed as exhibit, let me just make sure I get my numbers and letters correct. Exhibit 1C, so I think it's probably the second exhibit after the outline. And it's a spreadsheet that I think is very telling regarding the variety of establishments that we're looking to offer at the market, services, et cetera, and there's corresponding square footage, which I think the board might find interesting.
You mean this chart,
That's correct.
Yes, sir.
which begins with burgers, Vietnamese, pizza, barbecue, and that sort of thing?
Correct.
Okay. What would you like to tell us, sir?
I would just thought I'd take a moment and walk you through the overall plans and timing of what's happening with the project. As you may or may not know, the project's fully under construction. Construction began over 6 months ago. It's being done in a phased approach. That was done purposefully and working with the existing vendors in the community to make sure this had as limited impact as it could on such a large site and a large project. The first construction started on the Light Street side of the building and is continuing down towards the Charles Street side. Today, the first phase of the overall construction and development is the first 25% or so of the market, which are these 4 market vendors closest to the Charles Street side. Those vendors are actually 3 of the 4 are signed leases. We are actively moving forward to deliver those spaces sometime late August, early September to the vendors, and those vendors will be open at some point before the end of this year. The balance of the site from that space that I just pointed to all the way up to this corridor, which, if you're familiar with the market at all, stops basically right where Nunley Meats is currently the remaining portion of the project under construction. In total, that's about 16 vendors additionally. We have 10 of those 16 vendor spaces at lease, not all signed yet, but actively at lease. Overall, that timing will be delivery of those spaces by the end of this year, beginning of next, and those vendors will open to the public early next spring.
How many of those vendors are going to be selling alcohol?
As you can refer to on your sheet, in total, inside of the market, we're anticipating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 total vendors out of a total of 28 current vendors planned for the market. So give or take less than 30%.
Okay.
Overall, from a merchandising perspective of who goes where and why, we've tried to put kind of like uses together in a meaningful way. We see this as a true public market, and I was involved and our team was actively involved in the initial development, and we still handle all the leasing for Mount Vernon Marketplace, which, as you may be aware, is a food hall. And from our perspective, the major differentiation between a food hall and a public market is having non-prepared products, having a butcher shop, having a baker, having produce available for the neighborhood and the community to look for, not to replace necessarily their weekly grocery shopping, but certainly to have those products available to them as a convenience to living in that neighborhood. And so this is truly a public market. We are actively seeking out and have brought in vendors in the butcher category fresh seafood, cheese, dairy, bakery, and those are actively components coming into the market. And frankly, those will be in the first 2 phases of the market that we're participating in. The balance of the market will go under construction from Nunley to Charles Street, some point towards the end of this year, beginning of next. And that construction timeline will take an additional 6 to 8 months. So that would likely open about this time next year.
And would that include, can you talk a little bit about the outdoor piece of it? So I'm assuming the third section is the outdoor section, right?
Yes, so,
The southern portion is the
well, 2 things. So there are 2 phases of the outdoor work. The first phase, which is happening basically right now and is part of the additional construction happening, is the changes to the building. As you're aware, as you can see, we're really retrofitting the building back to its kind of original 1950s style. We're redoing the entire facades. We're sandblasting the entire side of the building to bring back kind of the original look and feel of the building. In addition to that, we are reopening the majority of the windows that were enclosed sometime in the late 80s to bring natural light back into the market and create an environment that we would want to spend time in. As doing that, we are taking some of the sidewalks and extending them around the building slightly. So in the first phase, as you can see on Light Street, we are turning the corner onto East Cross to this point, and then we're turning it again here. From here over is the only things that are happening as part of the construction right now. Similarly, on the Charles Street side, as you can see, the outdoor sidewalk is being extended slightly. Its current configuration basically ends at the widths of the building. In future phases, likely next year, would be to add additional outdoor space along the south portion of East Cross Street. And in doing that, we would have to go back through a process to get that approved and put into place.
That's a pretty narrow street, isn't it?
It's technically 1 lane of driving and 2 lanes of parking on either side. You would, unfortunately, to move forward, you would have to eliminate several parking spaces, but we're working through what that could potentially be handled in other places.
Okay.
May I see the other renderings that are down there?
These are just some interior shots. The top shot and the middle shot are basically identical. The only change, as you can see, is we have this idea of what we're going to do in the center corridor of the market, really as a means to activate it, create, what everybody's calling the Instagrammable moment, that scene that everybody wants to take a picture of and post about in social media. So we have a bunch of different ideas of how to achieve that. What you're seeing with the rest of the interior market is a very open air market, natural light, communal seating, unlike the existing market today, where if you were buying food from various vendors, there was really nowhere to sit. We have over 250 total communal seats that you could buy food from various different vendors and sit down together and have a meal, whether it's on your own, by yourself, or with a group of as many of your friends as you can find.
And what about outdoor seating? Do you have a number, or is that number correct?
So as of right now, those numbers assume that we are adding this portion to create outdoor seating. Without that area, there's no additional outdoor seating. So for the time being, for today, we will not have outdoor seating until future phases.
Okay. You want to continue?
Certainly.
Can I just ask some general questions out of
Sure.
curiosity more than anything? You sound like you have some experience in public markets.
Yes, sir.
In terms of this project, what other cities, what other public markets did you look at? Not just for the liquor component, but for the entire design. I'm sort of curious about the level of focus and time and research you've undertaken to do this. And also, if I could, Mr. Woolman, I understand if you could also explain just. I assume this is a lease from the city, and that's why this is only transferable back to the public, well, quasi entity. That's why so if you could just sort of talk me through those,
Sure.
just generally, so I have an
Certainly, I'll
foundation.
let Mr. Morris answer
Please,
the first
thanks.
part of your question, and then I'll have Mr. Murmurin speak to some of the
Thanks.
other parts of your question.
So from a high-level perspective, we're actively developing food halls and public markets today in Boston, White Plains, New York, Tribeca. We are about to open in Philadelphia, across from the Liberty Bell, a project called The Bourse. Will open in the next 30 days. That's a total of 29 vendors and 30,000 square feet. As I mentioned earlier, we've been actively involved since the inception of Mount Vernon Marketplace here in Baltimore. We're developing with Caves Valley Partners, Cross Street Market here in Baltimore. We're part of the team with Warhorse Development, working on the leasing and development of Holland's Market as well. And in Washington, D.C., we're developing 2 food hall markets. As part of that, obviously, our job is to become experts. I would dare to say there's not a public market or a food hall that's been open in the last 2 or 3 years that we haven't visited. I think it's important. You know, I've traveled all over the country, as has Mr. Mimran as well, looking at the markets that exist and really gleaning from them kind of best practices and what works and what doesn't in hopes to find, you know, the best combination of resources. I think what's important to know from our perspective in our company, you know, we do not have a one-stop fits-all model. As difficult as that is at times, because we have to recreate our team with every project, we think it's very important that each project is specific to the same time and place in the city that we're developing in. And it really has to become a part of that community. It has to be a part of that fabric. And, you know, if you look at the market that we've developed in Philadelphia versus Mount Vernon Marketplace, just as 2 examples, they are wildly different in tenant mix, in design, in feel, in vendors, just about everything, frankly.
They have cheesesteaks.
We do. In Philadelphia. Yes. We do not in Baltimore. And similarly, you know, we looked across street and kind of looked and said, what are the best practices and what are the public markets specifically that we really have gravitated to from a design, merchandising, and overall feel? I would say, and I'd be happy to have Mr. Mimran answer this as well, but I would think Pike Place in Seattle, Chelsea Market in New York are really considered kind of the 2 premier markets that are in the United States today that are both servicing as a food hall but also as a public market, also providing, again, the basic products and services that are unprepared or non-prepared for the local community that's surrounding it. And those were the 2 that we kind of gleaned, I think, the most from. Overall, I think we've brought a world-class design team together. We have BCT architects that are local here and based in Baltimore to really give us that kind of Baltimore sensibility. We've married them with Groundswell Design out of Philadelphia, which is an interiors group that is specialized in these kinds of projects all over the country, in hopes to really, I think, provide us a world-class design that's commiserate to the Baltimore community. And I think if you look at the overall, you know, renderings as an example, you know, the idea is that to totally create a higher quality overall experience, but higher quality doesn't mean more expensive, just so we're clear. It just means higher quality, and that, you know, you can get an experience that you're expecting and appreciate and can be proud of in Baltimore.
Thank you.
And then I'll just briefly introduce Mr. Arsh Murmuran, who is the applicant and actually a member of CSM Ventures, who will be the owner of the license. And I'll proffer for the record that the applicant is familiar with the rules and regulations of the Baltimore City Liquor Board. He pledges to abide by them. Mr. Murmuran is a partner at Caves Valley Partners, and as I mentioned, a member of CSM Ventures. He'd be happy to answer any questions you have regarding the long process that he and his partners embarked upon with the city, to answer Commissioner Greenfield's question regarding that. And then I know Mr. Murmuran also even spent family vacations, I believe, much to the chagrin of his wife, traveling around the country touring various public markets. So with that, I'll introduce Mr. Murmuran.
It's a good thing he's into this business and not, you know, solid waste.
It used to be. It used to be water, wastewater. That would have been even less popular.
You probably wouldn't have been married. Can you speak to the?
But I think I need to go on the record.
No, you're on. You're on.
I'm on. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The transaction with the city. If you could just speak to that, I want to make sure we have a firm understanding.
Sure.
I don't need the dollars and cents.
Just a brief background on myself. As Mr. Woolman said, I'm Arsh Murmuran. I'm a partner at Caves Valley Partners. We've been a very active developer in the South Baltimore area. We did a medical office building on Key Highway. We did 1111 Light Street, which is a mixed-use project directly across the street from the market, which is best known as the home to Betamore, the top tech incubator in Baltimore. We're developing a $350 million project a block and a half west of the market called Stadium Square, and another 5-acre site down on South Hanover Street. So we've been very active in the area. Going back to late 2013, I went back and looked at my files this morning. We felt that the Cross Street Market needed to be revitalized. The neighborhoods surrounding the market had been asking for it. The existing tenants had been asking for it. We embarked on a process back in late 2013, which took until late 2016 to come up with an agreement to do a public-private partnership with the city to redevelop the market. The structure of the deal is that the city owns the building and the property on which the building sits. The Baltimore Public Markets Corporation, which is a quasi-public group I'm sure you're familiar with, they have a lease with the city to operate the market. We have a management agreement with the Public Markets Corporation to redevelop the property and manage it going forward. It's a 15-year management agreement with 7 5-year options. So the structure is the city owns it, the Markets Corporation leases it, and then we have a management agreement with the Markets Corporation to redevelop and operate the property.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for Mr. Moran regarding
Thanks.
the applicant? Certainly. It's a little crowded.
But we still have more.
We've embarked upon an extensive community outreach program and have had multiple meetings with various organizations, both in the community and business neighborhood of South Baltimore. And in your Exhibit 1 packet, Exhibits D 1 through 8, there are various letters of support. There is a letter from the Federal Hill Neighborhood Association, which is a neighborhood comprised of 1,045 households. There's a letter from the South Baltimore Neighborhood Association, which is a neighborhood comprised of 2,000 households. There's a letter from the Federal Hill Business Association, which represents the majority of over 200 businesses in the South Baltimore area. There's a letter from the Federal Hill Main Street. They also represent a majority of over 200 businesses in the area. There's a letter from the Baltimore City Public Markets Corporation. The letter that I just handed you this morning from Council President Young. There's a letter from Councilman Eric Costello, and then a representative letter from an individual who lives in the neighborhood and has for a long time, Terry Bischoff. There are several folks who have taken time out of their schedules, and we greatly appreciate it, to come here today to testify in support of this license application. And I don't know if Beth was able to make it here or not. Is she? Okay. The president of Federal Hill is flying in from Rhode Island this morning, and her flight may have been delayed. There's been, as we all well know, thunderstorms all over the place lately. But we do have the vice president of Federal Hill Neighborhood Association, Mr. Walt Edinger, who is present. I guess I'll call Mr. Edinger up first.
Mr. Woolman, can I ask a question? I don't know when you're going to speak to this. Maybe I'm asking too soon. I would like some information on the $3 million capital investment, which has to meet, so.
Yes, we were going to, as we went through the various.
I'll follow your lead.
No, I appreciate the question, but we'll get to that.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Walter Ettinger. I'm a resident of Federal Hill and a board member of the Federal Hill Neighborhood Association and the vice president.
Spell your last name.
Ettinger. We would like to testify in support of the license. We believe that the Cross Street Market renovation is exceedingly important for our neighborhood and for our business community. One of the things that we, as you know, that we've struggled with in Federal Hill is the number of bars and the behaviors of people when they drink too much. And that's something that we've always thought about when when new businesses or new ideas come in front of us. And so we spent a great deal of time working with our legislators to put in things that we think mitigate any negative effects or mitigate most of the negative effects of alcohol consumption on the neighborhood. And those you've heard about this morning. You went over those. We sat with our legislators and really went through those. And then in 2017, we had a meeting of our neighborhood association, and by an overwhelming margin, 3-1, they voted in favor of supporting the license and the renovation of the market. So we think we've gotten a balance between wanting the market to be renovated and imbued with new life, and protecting the quality of life in the neighborhood. So that's why we're in favor of it, and we hope that you will approve this without delay.
Thank you, Mr. Ettinger.
Thank you, Mr. Ettinger. Ms. Faith Millsbaugh is also here from Federal Hill Neighborhood Association, and Faith has been present at a lot of our recent meetings this past year regarding our application.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Faith Millsbaugh. I am part of the Federal Hill Neighborhood Association Board, and I'm also co-chair of the Federal Hill Neighborhood Association Business Relationships Committee. And the reason why we started this committee is because we felt like it was much easier to work with our businesses in agreement or in coordination versus fighting them all the time. I also want to let you know I'm also president of the Federal Park Condominium Association, and I'd like to state that I am very much in support of the market, just as the rest of the neighborhood association. And I'd also like to speak a little bit on that. Before I moved to Federal Hill, I was part of the Roland Park community for quite a while. And with that, I have a lot of friends who still live there and a lot of North Baltimore friends. And I will state right now that the condition of Federal Hill is very tough for all the merchants here, and Cross Street will definitely bring the neighborhood up. And I've heard from many of my past neighbors and friends that they will come back to Federal Hill once Cross Street starts. So I think it's absolutely important for the survival of the businesses and the neighborhood that Cross Street Market be done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And God bless her, Ms. Whitmer rushed here from the airport to be here and offer her support as well. And I'll have her come up at this time. She's the president of the Federal Hill Neighborhood Association.
Yes.
Would you raise your right hand, please, ma'am?
Swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And can you state your name, please, for the record?
Elizabeth Whitmer,
W-H-I.
W-H-I-T-M-E-R.
Thank you.
I just,
Welcome.
thank you. Excuse my appearance. I just wanted to rush here to say that I think that living in Federal Hill and being president of the Neighborhood Association, I think it is vital that this market go forward. And I think that to be economically viable, this liquor license needs to be approved. That market has been in complete disarray for many, many years. Federal Hill, businesses in Federal Hill are suffering right now, and I truly believe, and I think most of the businesses believe as well, that an improved market that's the cornerstone of our community is going to do a lot to bring our neighborhood back to where it should be.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you, Beth. Next, I'll call Mr. Hank Schofer. Hank is the president of the Federal Hill Business Association. He's been present at a recent meeting that we had with his association regarding the application, and he's here in support as well.
Good morning, members of the board.
Spell your last name.
So it's S-H-O-F-E-R. So I'm also the president of Chauffeurs Furniture, and I don't know if you're aware, but we've been in business for 104 years, always in Federal Hill. The neighborhood, over through the years, I can tell you, it's gone through a lot of changes. I would argue now is probably the best, in my opinion, it's ever looked. People say, well, gee, it looks so terrible. These businesses are suffering. The neighborhood itself has changed, as most of the Inner Harbor, especially the areas around the water. We need to embrace the change. The Cross Street Market is the heart of the Federal Hill business area. We need to make sure that the Cross Street Market is successful. So whatever we can do to support them, I would argue would be a positive purpose. So I would think when the Cross Street Market would be successful, it's like the tide coming in. When the tide is low, all businesses are down. When the tide comes in, all businesses rise. Certainly the Cross Street Market could do this for us. And I'm just seeing there's a tremendous number of new residents in Federal Hill that we never saw before. We're welcoming them, and they
need furniture, right?
Hopefully they do. So, these people are looking for something different than the Cross Street Market has been in the past. So it's time for the Cross Street Market to morph into the new Cross Street Market as the neighborhood has, and it would be a welcome addition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schofer. Next, I'll call Andy Flax. Andy is the head, well, you're an officer of Federal Hill Main Street, excuse me.
How do you spell your name, sir?
Flacks, Flax. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Akras, thank you for the opportunity to speak before you on this, what we consider at Federal Hill Main Street, a very important endeavor. I would like to read a statement if that's
Certainly.
okay with you. Since its inception, I am the secretary of the board of Federal Hill Main Street. Since its inception, the board of directors of Federal Hill Main Street has been committed to the development, growth, and continued success of businesses within our district. We recognize and acknowledge that since 1846, the Cross Street Market has been the historic anchor of Federal Hill's commercial district. As such, we believe a renovated and competitive market will keep current customers and attract new customers to shop and dine in the neighborhood, and will support both the market's vendors and the larger business community as a whole. To this end, we urge this body to approve the application before it for a market-wide license. The renovation of the market with the associated market-wide license will be a catalyst of change to the Federal Hill Business District. The Federal Hill Main Street Board voiced its support of the enacting legislation in Annapolis in April 2017, and this support has never wavered. We continue to support our current and existing Cross Street Market business owners, vendors, and merchants, and are looking forward to working with all those involved, including new businesses, in bringing a new vision to Cross Street Market. We welcome and support this opportunity to improve the heart of our business district, and Federal Hill Main Street will gladly offer any assistance that is needed to make this vision a reality. Pending your questions, that ends my statement.
I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And finally, I'll call Mr. Mike Murphy. Mr. Murphy is the president of the South Baltimore Neighborhood Association. And just for the board's edification, the Cross Street Market sort of lies right down the middle of a boundary between the Federal Hill Neighborhood Association and the South Baltimore Neighborhood Association. We're pleased to report we have the support of both.
Morning, Mr. Murphy.
Good morning. So I guess I didn't have anything prepared, but I guess I'll summarize and what some of the other people have stated. That the market has been in need of redevelopment for a long period of time. My association has been very involved with that process. You know, it's gone through a number of different negotiations throughout this entire process. It was a very challenging effort to work through, lots of strong opinions throughout the entire endeavor, but it does need to go forward. My association supported the legislation that was ultimately passed. The limitations that were placed on this license exceeded the limitations that we asked to be placed on the license. So we are definitely in support of the process in front of the board today. And we hope to see this continue to move forward as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. And now, in response to Commissioner Greenfield's question, which was actually timely, was the next thing on my outline. So,
Does the councilman want to speak?
Well, I was actually going to call him
okay,
up sort
okay.
of at the end. He's my cleanup hitter, so.
Okay. There aren't many of those left in Baltimore.
No.
Trading them by the day.
That really struck home with me, but you're 100% correct on that one. I'll walk the board through in a little bit more detail the restrictions in the legislation, which I think are very important in this case. Again, it's obviously a case of first impression before you, as this is the only license of this type, and therefore the only time you've heard an application for this license. As I've mentioned, it's a Class B PML, obviously standing for Public Markets License, and there are various requirements in order to approve the application for the license. The first, and perhaps one of the more important ones, which I'm sure is why Commissioner Greenfield asked about it, is the capital investment of at least $3 million. The application package and also your Exhibit 1 package, I believe, includes a spreadsheet. It may only be in the application package in your files. I don't think I actually included it in the exhibit. But there is a spreadsheet that we provided well in advance of the hearing today as part of our application from McKenzie that showed a total capital investment, I think, of $5.7 million, which is actually low. And I'll call Mr. Murmuran to speak in more detail about the capital investment, which I believe is more than $8 million regarding this project.
Yes, the minimum threshold was $3 million, which was just something that was part of the discussion when we were looking to get this legislation passed to allow us to move forward with the project and with the liquor license. The actual investment is approximately $7.8 million. What you have in front of you are the hard costs, so the construction costs, the tenant improvement costs for the project. There's another $2.1 million plus or minus in soft costs. What's that? I'm sorry. $2.1 million in soft costs, architecture fees, design fees, furnishings within the market, and so forth. That brings the total investment up to $7.8 million. So that $3 million threshold we've surpassed by a great margin.
Thank you. And I think you've also convinced us that it's enclosed.
I think so.
One of the elements of the law.
Correct. As we've mentioned before, the ownership of the license is transferable only to the Baltimore Public Markets Corporation. I'll proffer that the applicant will certainly abide by this requirement. One of the more interesting restrictions that may have caught your eye is the liquor to be served in mixed drinks for at least $5 each. We got obviously very, very specific in this law, and as we negotiated with the delegation. The applicant and the managers of the market will certainly abide by this requirement. I'll ask Mr. Morris to elaborate both on that requirement and also the 20% total of the square footage and the vendors being limited to 1,000 square feet. He can talk a little bit more about why those restrictions are there and how we're going to comply with them.
Sure. I think stepping back for 1 second, if I may, I think it's important to understand the overall structure of how the market will ultimately be operated. We're actively involved in the operations of all the markets that we've been developed and have created since their inceptions. Specific to Cross Street, we actually already have a full-time market manager on staff. She's an employee of Cana Development that will be actively managing kind of the day-to-day operations, tenant coordination, public relations, social media, marketing, and also how the vendors and businesses within the market operate. She's kind of our eyes and ears to make sure that the vendors are doing the things that we've asked them to do and are operating in a way commensurate with the level of quality that we've been looking for. I think that's important to point out because it really gives us a checks and balances system on a day-to-day basis inside the market. One of the things that we kept hearing from the community and from the neighborhood associations was, how is this going to be kind of overseen? Right, and also how is this not going to be a detriment to the community and not become a place, obviously serving underage or serving shots of alcohol, all the things that were most concerning to the community. And with that in mind, we created a structure that we were comfortable working with that allowed us to still serve liquor, beer, and wine, but done really as an amenity to the overall experience within the market. Our existing markets and most markets throughout the country traditionally sell less than 20% alcohol sales in comparison to the rest of the sales of the market. And I think that's important to understand. This is not going to be, a major drinking establishment. This is meant to be an environment that if you're coming to have a great meal and you want to have, some people want to have a beer with their burger or a glass of wine with their pizza, that should be able to happen, to be a commiserate experience to what you see throughout the country and the other places and markets we've talked about, such as Pike's Place or Chelsea as an example. Through that, we came to a couple of different stipulations, one of which was that all liquor will be required to be served in mixed drinks and will require a minimum of a $5 charge. The understanding and impression that we came to with the community was that really gave everybody kind of a comfort level that we weren't going to be serving, crazy shots or, under charging and trying to compete with the rest of the market for price point. And that this was really meant to be an amenity to the overall consumer experience for the market.
So your manager is going to ensure that those who are actually handling the alcohol are certified and that they're compliant with our rules and regulations?
Correct. She'll be our eyes and ears really for you as well. And she will be, I'm sorry, I'm going to get them all confused. In Maryland, it's ServSafe. We're in a couple of different states. They're all called different things. But she is already ServSafe licensed. She's actually a former general manager of a well-known restaurant here in Baltimore. So she has alcohol experience in serving, and she has restaurant experience. In addition to that, she will actually make sure and manage making sure that all the vendors individually will be certified as well, and making sure that they will have those people on site during the times that they're operating. And that's a requirement also within their lease itself.
Okay. And the vendors who are serving alcohol are going to be limited to the 20% of the total square footage?
Correct. And the intention is not to have a mega bar. The intention is that each individual vendor will have products and services that really are commiserate with their experience. What I mean by that is, for example, it doesn't make any sense for I'm picking this group out specifically, but a produce vendor to sell liquor. That doesn't make any sense to us. Now, on the other hand, a pizza operator should be able to sell a glass of red wine, a glass of white wine, and ideally commiserate with their product. So if it's their pizza, it's likely going to be Italian wine. It's going to be an Italian beer, and maybe a barrel-aged Negroni as their singular liquor drink. And ultimately, that way we create an experience that's kind of what the consumer is looking for, but also not creating an environment that the individual vendors start competing with each other. So we'll be very specific in that if a certain vendor is selling a certain particular brand of beer, no other market vendor will be able to sell that beer. And that will give us the ability to really spread the experience out. It also creates an opportunity that the individual vendors don't start competing with each other, particularly at price. That's not the intention. We found that that's the best way to really maintain an overall quality experience.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything further, Mr. Woolman?
I would just restate that, sort of as a follow-up to your question and to Mr. Morris's testimony, that we obviously will abide by the restriction on the license holder that we submit to the board the same information about each vendor, again, on the vendor forms and applications that we'll be working with your staff.
Yeah, you'll need to do that in order to have them approved, so.
Correct. Absolutely.
And there's clearly
We're certainly
no-
not done today. That's absolutely certain.
We understand.
There's clearly no authority for live entertainment, no DJ like Major Lazer or anybody like that. All right, just throwing that out.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Neither do I most of the time. Live entertainment.
Put that out there to try to sound cool, didn't you?
It didn't?
Finally, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I'll just proffer regarding the criteria that you need to consider to approve the application under Section 12, 1603C2. The public need and desire for the license, the ability to serve alcohol as a complement to all the other food and services offered by the market will greatly enhance the services, improve the viability for the prolonged success and economic success of the market, and as an anchor and an amenity to the neighborhood. You've heard from the various neighborhood leaders regarding the public need. And I think now may be a good time to have the councilman also testify regarding his support and his obvious expertise and the knowledge of his constituency and the public need for the license. If he's, can't see him, is he here? There he is.
Councilman, I think you were sworn, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good
Eric
morning.
Costello, City Council, 11th District. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you. I've been intimately involved in this project since literally my first day on the council, October 6, 2014, and going back to when I was Beth Whitmer's predecessor as president of the Neighborhood Association, something I had been pushing for almost 3 years. This project is unequivocally the most important project in this area of the city. And I say that in light of the fact that Mr. Murmurin told you about a $350 million development project that they're doing in Sharp Leadenhall with full community support. This project is absolutely critical. It's the anchor for this neighborhood. The Cross Street Market has not met its potential, and we all recognize in the neighborhood that it does have great potential. We went through a laborious...
How old is it?
It was, well, the market has been there since 1846. The current structure, I believe, has been there since the mid-1950s. Does that sound right? 1952 burned down and a new structure was erected. But we went through an extremely laborious process, a very public and transparent process in conjunction with the 46th state delegation to work through the specifics of this liquor license. I would point out Mr. Murphy's comment, president of South Baltimore Neighborhood Association. The restrictions on this license are far more restrictive than what the community was asking for. I am extremely confident in not only the liquor licensee, but the operator of the market. Mount Vernon Marketplace is also in my district, as I'm sure you're aware. of their ability to run a world-class public market operation. And that's what we're looking for in Federal Hill and South Baltimore. And the reason that you see Andy Flax here and you see Hank Schofer here representing businesses in the neighborhood is because they understand the impact that this is going to have on all the other businesses in the neighborhood. This market is not intended to, and I have full faith that it's not going to compete with other establishments in the neighborhood. I know there's been discussions with local package stores. I know there's been a series of discussions over the past couple years with local restaurant and bar owners. And I think that the development and operations team understands that this cannot compete with those establishments. Those establishments also need to be successful to have a diverse and healthy business district. And I am, I have full faith that this is not going to compete in a negative way. I think this is going to be an amazing thing for that neighborhood. I'll also point out that myself, I live 2 blocks directly north of the market, and that's why I was so involved at the beginning when I was a community leader, because I recognize how important this project is for this community. So I do ask for your favorable consideration today, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. I'm pretty much satisfied with the information I have.
I don't have any questions.
No questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Woolman, is it appropriate to hear from Mr. Previs now, or do you?
I would just very, very briefly, and I promise I'm done, just to touch on a couple of the other criteria, just so we can be clear for the record.
All right.
There is a requirement that you consider the number and location of existing license holders. There are 10 BD7, 7B, 5D, and 2A licenses in the area based on your staff's study and report. There are obviously no other BPML license, as this license is unique to the public market, and obviously it will be the only one of its kind in the city. You need to consider the potential effect on the existing license holders of the license for which the application is made. The councilman just testified himself that he feels this actually will not be in conflict or have any negative impact on those licenses. I actually represent around 16 restaurants and bars and have represented before this board those establishments in the past. I've had many conversations with various owners of establishments, and I think the market will actually, we're hopeful, will help these establishments regarding its impact. The commonality or uniqueness of the services and products to be offered is another criteria that you need to consider, and I think you've had ample testimony from Mr. Morris regarding to how unique this market will be. I would dare to say there's going to be no other establishment like this anywhere in Baltimore City. The impact of the license on the health, safety, and welfare of the community, I would again defer to the councilman's testimony in particular, as well as the various community leaders regarding that criteria. And with that, I'll submit it this time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Previs, did you have something?
Yes, I just have one point of clarification. For the record, Peter Previs, P-R-E-V-A-S, on behalf of get the technical name here, South Cross Street Market LLC, trading as Nick's Market Seafood. In section 12, alcoholic beverages article 12-1002.1, C, separate premises. The premises for which the public market license is issued shall be separate from the premises for which a Class D 7-day beer and wine license has been issued. That reference is to Nick's Seafood's Class D license. The rendering that's been submitted, the floor plan that's been submitted, is for the entire market and does not exclude Nick's Seafood. That would be inappropriate under subsection C. Mr. Morris testified that he will be renovating this area in December, and there is litigation going on with regard to whether there is another 5 years left on that lease or not, and we would have...
Well, am I incorrect that the Nick's operation was grandfathered into the legislation?
No, sir. It's to be a separate license. That's what C says.
I'm not saying about the license, but it's an existing vendor within this Cross Street Market.
For
Right.
now, yes.
Right. So is it the intention of the applicant here, Mr. Woolman? Was it your intention to include the Nick's license within this license that you're seeking here?
The application is for a license that will exclude the existing license if it exists on this premises. So we have excluded it at this juncture. And as I've stated, and you've obviously commented several times, there's a lot more to be done here, and we're nowhere near the finish line. So at this juncture, we have an application that, according to the law, will exclude the existence of any existing license that's on that premises, and that may or may not change in the future.
So, Mr. Priest, if you're seeking clarification from the
Yes.
board because they're of some related or unrelated litigation, I think that should clarify it. I mean, we
Yes,
are
I
not,
think,
if we authorize this, we're not authorizing it to include NICS.
I appreciate Mr. Woolman's comments. I ask that the floor plan that's been submitted be amended to hatch out the Nick Seafood premises as it exists right now.
But we're not incorporating that into our ruling, his floor plan. I mean, he can change that if you
Well,
like.
I respectfully disagree, Your Honor. When this floor plan is submitted as part of a license application, that is the licensed premises.
Well, it's going to, if it is or isn't, it's going in with the clarification that we've just made here on the record.
Okay, so I'd ask that that be made part of the paper record. Appreciate that.
Okay. Is there anyone else here on this issue? Commissioners have any questions? Yes? Have you been sworn, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please come up.
Hey, Joe. All right.
Your name, sir?
Good morning. My name is Pete Chung, and I own Smitty's Liquor Company, which is directly right here.
Mm-hmm.
So less than 200 feet away. Why am I here today? I don't know. I closed up my shop, losing money right now, just to be here, to be heard. Maybe what I'll say will be taken into consideration, and I hope that it will. I'm not here to say that the market shouldn't get their liquor license. Frankly, I believe it needs one to give this project a chance to succeed. What it doesn't need, and what the neighborhood doesn't need, is another packaged goods retailer. Now, everyone at, I don't know, CSM Ventures, Caves, Kana, whoever's in charge of this, has repeatedly told people that it wouldn't have a space dedicated for conventional packaged goods sales. They'll say that it'll only be used for special pop-up events for local breweries and distilleries and such. Now, I'm gonna be handing out 2 handouts. If you pass that along. I thought there'd only be 3 of you, so I only brought 5 copies. So in the first handout, the one that looks like a spreadsheet, as you can see in section, for space 131 and space 132, what they have named craft beer station and wine merchant. Now, wine merchant pretty much sounds to me like a packaged goods space. Now, you couple that with the artisan distillery in space 145, you have a formidable space that could be dedicated to off-premise sales. Now, have you guys ever been to Belvedere Square Market?
I have. I don't know if the others have.
Okay, so there's a store, packaged goods store slash restaurant, more of a bar restaurant called Grand Cru. Now, they do a sizable business in off-premise sales. Now, something like that put into Cross Street Market would have devastating effects for the 4 immediate Class A licensees that are directly surrounding the market. Now, one of your objectives here today is to protect and see what the repercussions would be for other licensees, right? Like I said, I'm directly across here. There's Charles Street Liquors here, and a block down here is Old Fed Hill Liquors, and right here is Federal Hill Liquors.
But have you had this discussion with the applicant?
Yes, I'm getting to that right now.
Okay, so what's the result of the discussion?
So, we tried collectively reaching out to them in good faith, right? And they got back to us. In the second handout is a memorandum that they came back to us with.
Mm-hmm. The proposed MOU?
MOU, correct. Now, for us, they proposed to agree to come here today and support them. They wanted, I'll start from number 2, okay? For us to provide written or live testimony in support of this approval, that number 3, they will not provide for off-site consumption the following packaged goods from this BPML license.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Mass-produced beer for less than $1 per bottle, can, or container. So that comes out to $6 a six-pack. So I don't have any six-packs that I sell that are less than $6. Okay? And then they go on to say, individual bottles of rail liquor, unless they are a proprietary product affiliated with an individual vendor. Again, we have no clarity on what rail means. And they mention nothing of wine either.
Here's what confuses me. This has been going on for 4 years, and today's the final hearing, and that's as far as your discussions got? You didn't have any further discussion?
No. Good. This was done very late in the game.
Well, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Should have been done much earlier.
Mr. Chung, did you have any opportunity to present this before the General Assembly?
No, I had not. I got into this very late into the game, and I didn't realize it.
It sounds like you need to continue this conversation and see if you can resolve some of these issues with them.
Right. I mean, you got a big entity like this. I mean, the four licensees here have played by the rules. We've been up here before. We've bought our licenses. But then here's a big company like this that comes in. They don't play by the rules. They actually went to Annapolis and changed the rules so they could create a whole new license for them. I'm here to ask you. I'm scared. I mean, we don't want them to not go ahead with this market. We just want some clarification and restrictions and verbiage saying that they will not have the ability to have packaged goods sold in that market. I mean, your job here is to protect us, I would say, the little guys that have played by the rules. What do they need a packaged goods license for, seriously?
You need to have that conversation with them, sir. And you should have had it a long time ago, but there's no reason to stop having it now. You've gotten so far as to have a draft of a proposal, and you don't approve of all the terms, but you can continue to negotiate with them and try to resolve this.
What's to say that they will?
Well, I can't guarantee that or anything else in life. I mean, the Maryland General Assembly approved the license.
I understand.
Apparently, you did. I mean, you've got to try to work with them.
I understand.
I'm not saying that you don't have a problem. I'm sure that the other businesses have concerns about the impact it's going to have on them, but you need to try to work with them to see. You're saying it's a good thing for the community. Try to work it out.
Right, but don't you guys have an obligation as well to look out?
So you want us to kill this project?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm asking you to put some restrictions on their packaged goods part of the license.
I'm not sure we even have the authority to do that, but I understand. I think you need to negotiate an arrangement with them.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just comment on the testimony of Mr. Chung. And Mr. Chung and I have spoken on the phone, and we've exchanged emails, et cetera. We've spent a lot of time working with the leadership of the business community, and you've heard from the leaderships of those communities. A couple points of clarification regarding Mr. Chung's testimony. We went to Annapolis not to change the rules, but to make the rules better for the community. You've heard from the community leaders regarding all of the restrictions that have gone above and beyond the type of restrictions that they wanted to see on this license. So I would respectfully disagree with their characterization of why we went to Annapolis. We went to Annapolis to provide further protection for the surrounding community. And with regard to the testimony about a packaged goods license, I believe Mr. Chung says, I don't believe they should get a packaged goods license for the establishment. That's not the application that's before you. This is not a Class A packaged goods retail application. It's a very specific BPML application that has very specific restrictions. When Mr. Chung first contacted me, he was told there was a rumor being spread. We have our suspicions as to who's spreading rumors, but that there, he actually asked me how many Class A licenses are going into the market. And I quickly told him there are no Class A licenses going into the market, and let's talk about this so we can try to ease your concerns. And I was able to verbally ease some of his concerns, and then he asked, is there a possibility we could try to put something in writing? And we tried that. Yes, it was late in the process. We had a counter that, frankly, that the numbers were far apart. I'm going to have Mr. Morris just very briefly address this question, because I'm hoping it'll put Mr. Chung and his colleagues' concerns at ease There is no plans to have a quote-unquote liquor store in the Cross Street Market. There will be some very unique offerings, and there's going to be the ability to sell for off-premises consumption certain proprietary products of certain vendors, et cetera. But I think Mr. Morris, given his experience in the industry, could speak a little bit more to that, and I'm hopeful that that will help ease some of the concerns of Mr. Chung and his colleagues.
Well,
And I, as an attorney who represents businesses throughout this neighborhood, I live in that neighborhood. I personally will continue to try and work with this group on behalf of my client. I'm not promising that
Just
we're
to
going
clarify,
to
we're not authorizing any specific vendors to sell alcohol here today.
Exactly, and that was the other point I was going to
I
make.
mean, the
is
issue
we're-
before us
there's
today is
still a
whether to
process.
approve the market license.
I just have one question for Mr. Woolman. Hypothetically, would there be a stall inside the market that would be allowed to sell a liter of, say, Tito's vodka for consumption off premise?
I'll defer to Mr. Morris. I don't want to get into a back and forth.
Well, it's
on
not an
that.
issue before us right now.
You know, I would certainly indicate that we have no intention of operating the traditional liquor store in this market. We're not asking for a Class A license. We're happy to continue to discuss with Mr. Chung the particulars of his concerns. And as the chairman has aptly pointed out, we're not finished yet. We have to come back for vendors to be approved. And that'll give Mr. Chung and his colleagues a better opportunity, frankly, to study the specifics. I provided him the chart that he handed to you, and he asked, have any of these vendors been signed up yet? And they haven't. We're getting close, and we're happy to advise him when we do, and we can certainly further our discussion at that time. If you want to hear from Mr. Morris about any of these things, I'm happy to call him.
Well, I think they need to have this conversation. We are not approving any vendors today.
And there's no issuance of a license today, I would also.
Right. We're
also
not
point
issuing
out.
a license today. We're merely authorizing that it be issued once everything is in place.
Correct.
Okay? But I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chung.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further from anyone else?
Take it easy.
I hear a yes, but I don't know where it's coming from. Yes, sir. Have you been sworn?
Yep. My
You're-
name is Thomas Min. My business established the.
Thomas Min?
Yeah.
Spell it, please.
THOMIN. Yeah.
Good morning, sir.
My business established. I have some language barrier, but my business established since 1997. From the one block up there, from the South Market, the Cross Street Market. But I heard that this guy is applied the off-premises is very influenced to the federal area business person. The Class A, B. When I was started, Class B is a lot of labor food complaint to and try to change the Class A. Since I kept the Class A business, but I'm trying to transfer license to my son and daughter. But at this moment, how can I live in? It's a big company coming to the federal area. It's a small Class A or with some restaurant. They attacked into the federal area. It's so very sad. How can I live in my family, my son's family, and it generated my granddaughters? How can I live in? It's very sad story this time. I heard that back there.
So did you provide this testimony to the General Assembly when they enacted the legislation?
I don't understand.
Did you go to Annapolis and tell the legislators this when?
I heard that. Yeah,
Okay.
I heard that. But the city tried against their pride, change the license this time. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anything further?
Nothing further.
Okay, commissioners, anything?
Nothing further.
All right, thank you. So I appreciate everyone's interest in this project, which is an extraordinary one, and all the effort that has gone into it and the presentation as well on the basis of the materials contained in the application, on the basis of the exhibits which have been received into evidence, on the basis of the support that's been voiced here this morning as well as in writing to the board and the let's see what else, and the testimony that was received, as well as proffers from council, I would vote to approve the application for the new Class B PML beer, wine, and liquor public market license, requesting outdoor table service and off-premise catering.
I too vote to approve this license, Class B PML beer, wine, and liquor public market license, and that is based on the application, the exhibits that have been received, this significant community support, in addition to testimony that we heard today from the councilmen and other community members and from the CSM individuals. I vote to approve the application.
So I too vote to approve the application based on the following. The $3 million capital investment was made based upon the spreadsheet provided. It's clearly an enclosed structure. You also, sounds like the floor space that's dedicated to alcoholic vendors will not be more than 20%. And then with respect to Section 4210A, Mr. Ettinger, Ms. Millspaw, Ms. Whitmer, Mr. Flax, Mr. Murphy, Councilman Costello, what I heard very clearly is that this is is and will be a critical anchor for the community. Won't compete with existing licensees. I know there is some concern that I'm hopeful will get worked out, and that this will serve and create a more diverse and healthy business district. Mr. Chauffeur's testimony suggests that a rising tide lifts all ships. I think that might have been Justice Brandeis who said, I don't know, I'm coming up with that. But for those reasons, I would support the issuance of this license.
From Major Lazer to Justice Brandeis.
I'm full of it. I'm full of it.
He doesn't know what he's saying, but that's all right. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
Mr. Ackers, is that our morning docket?
That concludes our morning docket. We'll
Exhibits.
recess till 1:30.
She has exhibits.
Exhibits.
Exhibits, everybody be quiet for a minute, please.
Board Exhibit 1, email of opposition from H&B Valeri dated 7/25/2018. Board Exhibit 2, letter of support from Baltimore Public Market Corp. Board Exhibit 3, letter of support from South Baltimore Neighborhood Association. Board Exhibit 4, letter of support from Federal Hill Main Street. Board Exhibit 5, letter of support, Councilman Costello. Exhibit number 6, letter of support from Federal Hill Neighborhood Association. Applicant Exhibit 1 in support. Exhibit 1, letter of support. Applicant Exhibit 2, business plan, Exhibits 1 and 2 submitted collectively. Community in opposition, Exhibit 1, LBW tracking sheet, and Exhibit 2, MOU. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our morning docket. Board will be in recess till 1:30.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
First case in the afternoon.
All right, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Board of Liquor License Commissioners for Baltimore City's afternoon docket. Today is Thursday, July 26th. This afternoon we'll be hearing violations. When your case is called, please step forward to the microphone, state your name, and if you're going to be giving testimony, please be prepared to be sworn in. Calling the first case, George Divil III, William Matriciani, and Donna Matriciani, Weed Dog LLC, trading as Playbook, 6700 German Hill Road. There's a Class B7 beer, wine, and liquor license, violation of Rule 4.14A, live entertainment without authorization, violation of Rule 3.03C, employee records, and a violation of Rule 3.09B, restroom facilities and health regulations.
Councilman, identify yourself.
Good afternoon. Harry Previs on behalf of Playbook.
Mr. Previs, I'm going to recuse myself from this case for obvious reasons, and the other commissioners will hear your request.
We're requesting a postponement. My dad's been going to do this case, and he ran out to Prince George's County for a trial. If that.
Okay, so
okay.
Mr. Previous, just want to make sure we're clear. So there's a conflict with the.
I'm filling in for Pete Previs.
Right, I understand. And so you're just requesting a postponement because there's a conflict in scheduling that's come up.
That's correct.
Okay. Unless Commissioner Hafey has any other questions, I grant your postponement request, and we'll set it in as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
There are a couple other preliminary matters, if I can just address them. Case number 2, Shernese Haywood and Jennifer Hernandez, Red Eye Shift LLC. That matter has been postponed and will be set in on a future docket. Matter number 4, Luis F. George, Two Louis Cantina LLC, trading as Two Louis Cantina Bar and Grill. That matter has been postponed and will be set on a future docket. Claudia Cardona, Glenn Iseri, and Ricardo Mule, Wendy's Bar Incorporated. That matter has been postponed and will be set in on a future date. Case number 8, Surmeet Denchakul and Rajwan Kaur, 1269 Washington Incorporated, trading as Chris Liquors Bar and Grill. That matter has been postponed and will be set in on a future date. And if I may, Mr. Chair, call another case for courtesy.
You may.
Calling, this is case number 14, Ika S. Ika Nem, surviving representative, Woodbourne Lounge Incorporated, trading as York Club Tavern, 5407 York Road. This is a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license, a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors. All individuals will be providing testimony in this matter should step forward now.
Mr. Akers, is this the York Club Tavern?
Yes.
Wait a minute. I just need to find it on my docket.
This is number 14.
There should be she updated the sheets that's in front of. No. It's from the very last.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes, would those who are going to testify please raise your right hands?
Raise your hands, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Ma'am, are you Ms. Econom?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you've been charged with a violation for a sale to minor on April 26, 2018. Do you admit or deny that accusation?
I admit, sir.
You do. Okay, you want to explain to us what happened?
Unfortunately, sir, I don't know the best words to use to explain this. I lost my husband in 2010. It's been an uphill task to run this business. Unfortunately, when you have other people in your space that do not bear consequence or does not understand the consequence, they make stupid mistakes. I've been here this long. I have never sold to minor as a person. But the minute you leave somebody in the space and they don't think hard and they don't know the consequence and they don't bear the consequence, he made a stupid mistake. I beg that the court give me a chance. I have run this business since that 2010 on my own, but the worst problem you want gonna have is employees. And because of that, things have been going so rough with this business. Because of that, I've decided to transfer the license. As we're talking, license is in for transfer since I can no longer manage it. I'm a widow with young children, and now I have to split my time between trying to run a business to earn an income, a living for the children, since there is no other breadwinner in the family, and between trying to take care of the children. So it's been an uphill task, and this problem is actually people that don't care. Sent him away, is gone, but more importantly, I have also put in the license for transfer since I can no longer manage. I just want
Are you still in operation?
haphazard, because I don't want to completely lock the doors and walk away. I come in when I can and open the door, no longer have anybody in the space. And I come in when I can and open it and run it myself until I lock the door and leave with the keys again, just to make sure that things will never go wrong.
So you're the only one who's
Yes,
in the
ma'am.
space right now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned about transfer. Have you put in, do you have a buyer?
There is a buyer, an upcoming buyer. I think they have started the paperwork, and I'm just hoping that things go through. So that this is not even the first time. I've done this for almost 2 years, trying to transfer the license because I realized I could no longer manage the business. But things don't go as you plan, so I just have to work along with it and don't completely lose my source of income.
When do you think the transfer?
I think within maybe a month, I think. Maybe within a month, because I think they've started the paperwork process and everything else, and I'm hoping that everything go right. But I apologize, and I'm so sorry that people keep creating problems that they can really, it's unfortunate because it has never happened. All it is for me to look up and see what face is there. But when you leave people that don't pay attention, don't really bear the consequence, so they don't know the consequence, they don't feel my pain. That's why it happens.
Ms. Econom, you understand, though, that you're the holder of the license and you're
Yes.
ultimately responsible,
Yes,
right?
Yes, I do, and
So-
I apologize.
And so by my account, this would be your third sale to mine.
It's a fourth.
This is the fourth
I'm sorry, I'm stand correct, the fourth. Pretty serious.
Yes, please. The license, I'm about to transfer the license because I realized that I'm not gonna be able to do it no more. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
One second. But Detective, did you want to add anything? Was the licensee cooperative?
Yes.
Have you, Ms. Inspector, have you been back there? Is it open on a regular basis?
I don't work, Chairman. I'd be happy.
Okay. Okay.
And the licensee wasn't there, they had one of their employees, and he was
Okay.
How often are you at the establishment now?
Daily.
What about before you got this?
Usually, because of the young children, I was running the day shift. Never happened in day shift. But in the night shift, when I have to pick up the children and go home, that's when things go wrong. So I am now working half day and the night shift to try to sort of keep things straight.
And how often is it open?
Daily.
Oh, every day?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman, did you want to testify?
I did, and I appreciate the courtesy. I also, one of the community people who is here wanted to know if she could be sworn in to offer what I could only think of would be rebuttal testimony. Having heard remarks that she believes are untrue, she'd like to know if it's appropriate for her to
I thought
testify.
she was not sworn. Come on up.
Other hand.
Bryson.
Right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Hello, Lisa O'Reilly, LISA_OREILLY. I'm a resident of Govans and I live across the street on Homeland Avenue. And I know Mesike well, and I know the establishment very well. I've lived in the neighbourhood for 17 years. As Mesike has pointed out, it's a difficult business to run for her personally. That's true, but I would also testify that the actual individual who is mentioned in this citation, I think is the word. I'm not too sure. Help me out here. But this man is known in the neighbourhood for also having another violation in another business. When I saw his name particularly, I'm like, oh, everybody knows who he is. He's been selling, well, again, this is just accusation. He's allegedly sold cannabis from underneath the counter in another store, which he sold on to another person. That happened about maybe 6 or 7 years ago. That's probably not in your documentation because it doesn't pertain to this.
No,
but the neighbourhood knows this particular building and this particular business is really a very difficult business. It's practicing as a BD7, but it's not actually a BD. It's a BD7 license, but it's not practicing as a BD7. The doors are locked. The front entrance, if more than 5 people are in the front entrance, it's very dangerous. So when people spill out onto the street, one of the issues that there is there's a lot of people who hang around the door. The issue that the community has is that the loitering laws don't allow us to actually effectively have the street the way that we would like them to have it, and we would like it to be. As long as those people are moving around her door, then they can continue to practice the other business that they practice around that door. Mesike has tried. It's a very difficult situation to be in when you are being terrorized, when you're being what's the word I'm looking for, EK? Intimidated, thank you, by these people who have their alternative business outside your front door and use your premises as their front office. And that is actually what's happening outside Club Tavern. It is not a tavern, sirs and madam. It is not a tavern. It does not serve food, either cold or hot. I have a letter there. I'm president of the York Homeland Association, which is a small, tiny little association across the street and down a little bit. We have talked to Mesike a lot from the York Road Partnership about what to do with this business. But in general, it is a business that personally, as Lisa O'Reilly, I'm saying I'd love to see closed. But having said that, I think as the York Road Partnership, We would like to see a business in that building that edifies our community rather than causes trouble. And I'll be honest, and EK will even back this up. There's a lot that goes on around that building that is not edifying to anybody. And it's the general story of Baltimore City. I'm talking here on behalf of, right, the York Road Partnership that includes over 30 community associations that etch onto, and also places of worship. Miss EK's business is attached to a church. So when Pastor Sandy is trying to have church on a Sunday, and it is a pretty good church, right? The deacon of the church has to make sure that the drunk people outside the door don't intimidate the people going into church. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Now, I understood that you're not supposed to have a licensed premises within 300 feet of a church. This is where the grandfathering, right, of Baltimore City licenses is something that communities are fighting hard, because it's our community that suffers from age-old practices. And I understand, board members, it's not your place today to change state law. I understand that. And I appreciate that. But that's what we have to live with. And I'm sure you hear that day after day. But in this particular instance, this man who sold that minor drink knows exactly what he's doing. He doesn't care. And what we as a community are very upset by is we care. We care about the fact that this businesswoman can't practice her business the way she wants to because of intimidation, retribution, and general just malaise. And I don't want that in my community. So we're trying to see what we can do with a future owner. You asked, sir, Mr. Greenfield, whether there would be a new purchaser. We're hoping to meet with him soon. There was another purchaser who did come on the scene. It was discovered that he was a very big, large cocaine dealer from New Jersey. So that's something we don't want coming into our community. So what we're asking you is that if there's transfer of licenses in another time, please have a really good look at who's buying businesses in Baltimore City that they're not using it to launder. That's just, I could go on, but thank you for my time, thank you for your time, and thank you.
Please, may I say something on behalf of what she said? She's mentioned that this particular employee have a record of selling whatever to somebody, but he was never at my location. This employee came onto...
He's not really the issue before us today.
Yes, and something else about this location. Unfortunately, yes, the business is located in the inner city of Baltimore. We know what the problem is with inner city businesses. Liquor stores. I'm not the only one. We are 3 liquor stores all around in that neighborhood. Nobody can point a finger to say, in most cases, she can testify, just like she said. I fight a battle to make sure the front of my store stays clear, despite the intimidation and harassment. I insist that transactions cannot be done around me and everything else. I do my best to also help the community. They can tell the story. I send mothers to rehabs. I pay bills for people to make sure they wouldn't lose their children. I do everything to help the community, but this is a problem that is not peculiar to me. The unfortunate thing is that I am also in here, but all I'm begging is that this was my license, this was my livelihood. I should not suffer the consequence of what is wrong with the community. I know this guy, whether he cares, I cannot completely say he doesn't care. I think it's just careless, because for him to make such a mistake. But I don't think that we have any intention. I have any intention. I can go back to my community and come up with 50 people here that will stand here and testify on my behalf, because they know who I am. They cry that I'm about to transfer this license and ask me every day not to go, but I told them I can't do it anymore.
In fairness, ma'am, we have at least 5 or 6 letters from community and community organizations who want us to close your license down. So it's a mixed bag at best. Anyway, Councilman, did you have something to add?
I did. Thank you very much. My name is Bill Henry. I'm the councilman for the 4th District. I'm here today with representatives from Homeland, from Woodburn McCabe, from York Homeland, from the York Road Partnership, from Richner Springs, Wilson Park, and I have one other neighbor who would like to testify, but I think I'm going to be able to convince him that Ms. O'Reilly has already testified extensively on behalf of the communities for the issues around this establishment. And the,
I have an issue because my house has been broken into.
yeah, okay, yeah, no, I'll talk with you about that later. What I would like to just be very clear about with the board is we understand that the issue before you today is one particular charge of selling to a minor. As you've already established, there is a pattern of this, and the reason that the community is here in force today is to make it clear that even if you did not choose to close the establishment over this particular charge, we would like you to recognize that there is clearly a problem with this license. Ms. Ike has, admitted that she is having difficulty running this establishment the way you and we would like it to be run. It is very likely that we will be back here before you next year if the license is not transferred and sold to a new owner, asking for it to be not renewed because it is literally the linchpin of street activity. We had hoped that we would have the representatives from the police department here today to join us to say that that is one of the area around this establishment is one of the ones where they have felt obliged to have a regular police presence. It is the only liquor license for several blocks in either direction, actually I believe more than a mile to the south, before you come to another liquor establishment that is selling packaged goods on Sundays. It becomes the main problem on Sundays for that section of the corridor, and it is also the only business left open now after midnight, now that the community has successfully protested the late night commercial operations licenses of all of the businesses on that stretch of York Road. We ask that you just pay very close attention to the impact that this business is having on the community, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to add anything, ma'am, before we
Yes,
move on?
sir. He's my councilman. Mr. Councilman, with all due respect, I would like for you to, we are three liquor stores in that location. I would like for you to add it right now, in between the other liquor store, my liquor store, there is always a police officer. At what time did I not give cooperation to the police department? They all come in the store, we talk, and we agree. Not only that, sir, I am the one the only store that people don't hang in front of my store or inside the store. That I am the one individual. I can prove that to anybody because I insist, and because of that, I suffer consequence of maybe people not wanting to come in and buy. Oh, she's nasty. Oh, she's mean. But this trouble is not my store. It is the location. So if we're talking about this location, I accept everything is said, but don't make it my 5407 problem. It's not. It's not. It is just the block, the general block starting from his. I've gone to his office before to complain, and they are right there outside his office because that is the rehab center. And they're all over the place. If you drive on York Road, you will see. When I went, that was the communication. Look at them out there. So it's not my personal problem or one building problem. It is the problem with the whole block. And maybe if we sit down and try to find a solution as to what do we do with 5407 up that corridor, then maybe there might be a better solution than putting me in it. I don't have nothing to do with it. I sell liquor. I don't even sell tobacco no more. I don't even sell none of those things no more. So it's not my problem. It's the block.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners have anything further?
And sir, please let me add. He is saying it as if I should suffer the consequence. I am a widow with young children. This is my.
Ms. Ackerman, I think you're missing the point here. This is not about loitering.
Yes.
Loitering is a problem this commission and the police department deals with on a daily basis. That's not the issue here. The issue is that this is your fourth violation of selling to minors. That's the issue, and that's your responsibility. So I understand the loitering. That is a citywide problem that I'm hopeful we'll find a solution, but that's not what's in front of us.
Yes, but I'm transferring the license.
I understand, but it's not in front of us now.
Sorry.
Okay.
Within a month, I think I will be out of there, please.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. On the basis of the materials contained in the charging documents, the testimony received, and the licensee's admission, I would find a violation of Rule 4.01 small a, sale to minor on April 26, 2018. This is the, as we've already said, the fourth violation for this. Ma'am, you've indicated that you have some financial constraints, so I'm not going to impose a fine, but I would vote to suspend your license for a period of 10 days and hope that you can transfer it.
I too find a violation of Rule 4.1 small a, sales to minors. This is the fourth violation of this kind. My great concern is that she testified that she's unable to manage this establishment. I too agree with suspending the license. I wonder if it's possible to suspend pending the transfer of the application.
But we don't know when that's going to be.
If we take the licensee's word and say 30 days, you know, and I guess the question, Mr. Akers, is whether that is, I don't know if a transfer is application actually been submitted.
Yes.
There was a transfer application submitted. I do not know, because I know she said there was somebody else who submitted a transfer application, if that original application was withdrawn. I'd have to take a look into that because that's a very recent occurrence. But the board can suspend as long as it deems fit.
I would like to suspend pending the transfer of the application.
I too find a violation of Rule 4.01A and would concur with Commissioner Hayfie in the suspension of this license for, can we do it until the, I vote to suspend for 30 days. Yes.
I'll agree to suspend for 30 days as
All right,
well.
let's make the vote unanimous. Ma'am, the license is suspended for 30 days effective immediately.
One last thing, Mr. Chairman. I would strongly encourage you to have the new person, the applicant, meet with these community members before you come before this board. Because you may want to discuss a memorandum of understanding of this, but you need to have some community outreach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No admin fee.
Oh, admin fee,
Let's suspend it. Let's waive it.
let's waive it.
Yes. I'd like to call exhibits for the record. Board Exhibit 1, letter of opposition from Radnor Winston Improvement Association. Board Exhibit 2, letter of opposition from York Road Partnership. Board Exhibit 3, letter of opposition from Delegate Murray Washington. Board Exhibit 4, letter of opposition from Delegate Maggie McIntosh. Board Exhibit 5, letter of opposition from Councilman Bill Henry. Board Exhibit 6, email of opposition dated July 25th, 2018. Board Exhibit 7, 4 emails of opposition dated 7/26/2018.
Calling the next case, Sung A. An and Dolores Johnson, ACA Liquors Incorporated, trading as Eric 500, 500 East North Avenue, Class BD7 beer wine liquor license, a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors, March 8th, 2018.
Counsel.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Stephen W. Fogelman on behalf of Sung An, licensee.
Would all those who are going to testify raise their right hands, please?
Do you swear or
Ma'am, please raise your right hand.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
Admission or denial?
Denial. Thank you.
Okay. Who's going to testify? Detective, are you testifying? Who's testifying?
Chairman, can we swear in the cadet? It was the wrong cadet that had come up, please.
What is his first name? Just before I forget it, because you said it was Malik. M-A-L-I-K. All right, raise your hand. Swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I'm sorry, but I'm confused. My charging documents don't mention anyone named Malik.
His last name is Bradford Day.
Oh. Okay. Okay. I thought his name was Bradford Day. Okay.
His name was Paul Masson, I'm sorry.
Okay. So, Detective, are you testifying?
I believe I always hawk it. It's time for others.
Okay, Inspector.
Right. On 3/8/2018, at approximately 2100 hours, members of the Baltimore Police Department Vice Unit and Baltimore City Liquor Board were utilizing Baltimore Police Department Cadet Bradford Day, who was under the legal drinking age of 21. Cadet Bradford Day was given $20 bill, which was marked and photographed prior to any investigations. At this time, we sent Cadet Bradford Day into 500 East North Avenue, which is known as Eric 500. Once inside, Cadet Bradford Day met with the server, who was later identified as Anthony Miles in Baltimore, Maryland. Cadet Bradford Day asked for a 750 milliliter bottle of Paul Mason Peach. At this time, server Anthony Miles handed Cadet Bradford Day a bottle of Paul Mason Peach in exchange for a $20 bill. At this time, Cadet Bradford Day notified the members of the Baltimore Police Department and Baltimore City Liquor Board of alcoholic drink purchase. We then entered in the location, and server was identified by Detective Greenhill. Inspector Clark and Detective Greenhill advised the night manager, Anthony Miles, that he had sold alcohol to an underage police cadet. The alcohol was left with the night manager. All events occurred in Baltimore City, Maryland.
Do you have questions for the inspector?
No questions. Thank you, Inspector.
And Mr. Day, was that an accurate statement?
Yes, sir.
Do you have questions for Mr. Day?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Okay.
Thank you. No, we'll submit at this time.
Okay. Well, on the basis of that testimony, I would find a violation of Rule 4.01 small a on March 8, 2018.
I too find a violation of Rule 4.01 small a, sales to minors on March 8th, 2018.
I find a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors on March 8th, 2018.
Wish to be heard.
Thank you very much. Ms. Ahn didn't wish to deny the charges. It's simply a technical thing for me in representing her. What we're here today is to talk about what happened last time and what's happened with all these other prior offenses. I want to make it very clear to the board, if it's not clear from your own file, that there was a full transfer of ownership of this establishment on May 18th, 2017 before this very board. It was approved by a 3-0 vote. During that transfer, all stock was transferred from Mr. Byung-Wook Ahn to Sung-A Ahn. That having been said, that transfer was effectuated as a result of a meeting with liquor board officials in early 2017 who advised the licensees that they needed to sell the business or transfer the license because Mr. Byung-Wook Ahn had amassed at that time 5 charges on him.
So can I just stop you for a second?
Sure.
So if what you're telling us is accurate, Ms. Ahn is only responsible for 2 violations during 2017?
Well, and thank you. Yeah, it was just leading up to that. It's my understanding through a review of the file that the July 13th, when the licensee appeared before you on July 13th, that was Mr. Ahn, and that was on him. That was under Byung-Wook Ahn on July 13th.
And how is he related?
He is the husband of the licensee. However, he does not work at the establishment. He is a full-time driver for Uber. And when you look at your case summary, it's a little bit misleading. I don't think it's intentionally misleading, but the second page says the license was transferred to the above-named corporation on June 29, 2012. However, that corporation had new ownership as of May 2017, at which time the board approved
So who were
that.
the prior owners of the corporation?
The prior owners of the corporation was Byung-Wook Ahn.
Her husband?
Mhm.
And then he transferred the stock in the corporation to her
100% to
in
Ms.
May of 2017.
Yes. And we brought this up at the March hearing. I was here representing her in March, but it was
March of
2018, which would be the second violation on that page there. It says, see, violation history of current corporation, and it shows 2017. I would contend that one was under Byung Wook On, and the only reason that they hadn't had their transfer completed. The transfer hearing was on May 18th, and you had a violation hearing on July 17th. So that one is the one that there's some question to me who that should be charged to. Clearly, the March 15th of this, I'm sorry, March 1st of this year case, that's the second one down, showing.
Where do you see March 1st? I don't see.
It's the second on C. It's on the second paragraph under there, and that was a 4.20 violation, not operating as a tavern. I do believe you fined the licensee at that time
Yes.
at least $1,500, but
What
I
it
think
says
there's
here.
a typo here because I promise you the board did not suspend this license for 10 days on March 1st. I was
No,
here.
that's from the prior one. According to this, March 1, she was fined $1,500.
Right, and the materials you have in front of you state a 10-day suspension and a $3,125 fine.
That was from
That's the s-
July of last year.
Okay, that's not what I have on the thing that I printed out on the internet.
But that's what ours is, whatever.
Okay.
So that, it
All right,
wasn't
so
in March.
what I'm getting at is it was her first offense when she came in here in March, and we expected it to be treated like a first offense, but I don't think I made it clear enough to the board that this is a completely different owner and a full transfer that was approved by a 3-0 vote. If we were to treat husband and wives as, some undivided interest in all businesses they might hold, then there would have been no reason to
I
file
understand
a
your
transfer.
point about all that, so let me
Sure.
ask you this. So she's taken over the business from her husband, she runs it herself now?
She has a bartender who sold to the to the cadet. However, I just want to let you know that they are trying to sell the business. There is loitering on the streets they're trying to clear out. There is a lot of activity on North Avenue, and it's a lot of work, and they are looking to wind down that business and maybe give somebody else a go. But this is.
So according to your admission, this is her second sale? of
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I would argue further, in the interest of advocacy, that she was fined $1,500 on what I thought was her first offense. We did not appeal it. It was money rather than a closure. I would ask that you consider imposing a first-time offense of $500 based on what happened last time.
But you do understand, though, that while there's a change in ownership, the corporation continues to hold the license.
I do, but I also know the history of this board, and we find people. Or that is, the liquor board finds people, and people are the ones who write those checks, and people are the ones who appear there. So, I mean, let me just argue, just briefly, if this was an arm's length transaction, people still buy other people's corporations. But that should indeed reset the clock for the period of meting out punishment as far as liquor board
I understand your
violations.
argument, I just,
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioners have questions?
I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. And do you have any potential sales on this license?
I know that the business is being offered at a very reasonable price compared to what the Mr. On paid for it originally.
Well, given that it's a second violation, and I don't know when this one from March actually occurred.
December or January. I represented her in that case.
Yeah, it's within a matter of,
January 11th, 2018.
okay. I mean, given how bad the record was, I was inclined to think, again, that it had to be suspended. I'll accept your argument, but I would impose a $3,000 fine and give her 30 days to pay it.
I concur with the imposition of a $3,000 fine and 30 days to pay, plus the $125 administrative fee.
I concur with my colleagues on the imposition of the fine. of $3,000 in the admin fee.
You need to get rid of the license, I think. but-
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Appreciate it,
Bye-bye.
Commissioners.
No exhibits for the record.
Calling the next case, Alba de la Cruz and Rosalie Jackson, El Dorado Lounge Incorporated, trading as Club El Dorado, 4100 through 02 East Lombard Street. This is a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license, a violation of adult entertainment, and the liquor license violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors, and also a violation of Adult Entertainment Rule 3.05A, incorporation of liquor license rules and regulations to applicable licenses, and also a violation of Rule 4.16, illegal conduct.
Will all those who are going to testify raise their right hands, please?
When you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Counsel for the record.
Thank you. Stephen W. Fogelman on behalf of licensee Alba de la Cruz.
Admissions or denials?
I believe this is going to be an admission. Give me just 1 second, please. Yep, it's going to be an admission.
And Mr. Akers, could I have some clarification on the Rule 4.16 violation?
This is the, we conducted a review of the status of their trader's license. It was the El Dorado Lounge Incorporated, and found that no such trader's license had been issued to that entity. There was a trader's license application pending with the Circuit Court of Baltimore City for an entity known as Cruise One Entertainment LLC, which has an address associated with this location, and that was as a result of the transfer of this license to Ms. Alba de la Cruz recently.
So are we admitting that violation
Yes.
as well? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so let's hear from you.
All right, thank you very much. As you may remember, this is a recent transfer. Ms. Flomeri Rosario is here. She was the bartender on duty. It was her first week on the job. She's worked in New York City and Brooklyn at the Barclays Center, serving beer to customers who go to New York Nets games and Brooklyn Nets games, that is now. She is the only bartender at this establishment at the present time. Therefore, she is now 100% carding every customer who comes in, and she will train future bartenders to do a 100% ID check. I thought it was impressive because this happened on May 9th, and she went and got herself, although she wasn't required to, she went and got herself alcohol management certified by May 29th, so within 20 days of the offense. As far as the other offense goes, not as quick on the return there, but on July 25th, yesterday, we have a trader's license, and therefore you got to be in good standing to get one of those.
You said it was a recent transfer, but I have it from 2003.
I believe a transfer application was recently filed. I'm not, and I don't know if there's a hearing, but Ms. De La Cruz is a new licensee.
Well, I don't have any prior violations anyway.
Right, and in fact, whether it's on them or on the prior licensees, which was the Jacksons, both of the Jacksons, Rosalie and Ms. Jackson, they had no violations going back to.
We don't have any history of violations.
Yeah. So I would ask that you consider that. It's been a well-run, pretty small club in East Baltimore with really no no deleterious activity over the years.
Okay, commissioners have questions?
I don't have any questions.
I do not.
Okay, anything further?
No, I thank you.
Cooperative? Okay.
Chairman, I just want to say that there was a security guard there that actually had gone around the corner to smoke a cigarette. So the bartender was very cooperative, and she just had assumed that someone had gotten carded before they walked in.
Okay.
And can I have that trader's license? They need to put that on the
I
wall.
think you need that, yes.
Thank you.
You may. We'll note for the record.
Yes. I don't think you need to, but thank you. Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. On the basis then of the documentation submitted and the testimony and proffer from counsel, and the admissions, I'd find a violation of Alcohol Beverage Rule 4.01A on May 9, 2018, and of Adult Entertainment Rule 3.05, small a, on May 9, 2018, as well as a violation of Rule 4.16 on June 20, 2018. In light of the good record to date, I would impose a $300 fine as to the first violation, $300 fine as to the second, and a $100 fine as to the third, and I'd give them 30 days to pay.
I too find a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors on May 9, 2018, and a violation of Adult Entertainment Rule 3.05A on May 9th, 2018. And I concur with the imposition of a $300 fine as to both of those violations. And finally, I find a violation of Rule 4.16 on June 20th, 2018, and I concur with a $100 fine, 30 days to pay.
I find a violation of Rule 4.01A and would agree with the imposition of a $300 fine. I find a violation of Adult Entertainment Rule 3.05A and agree with the $300 fine. And I also find a violation of Rule 4.16 and would agree with the imposition of a $100 fine.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. No exhibits.
$300 as to both.
Right.
Yeah, I know. Just trying to confuse me. Yeah. I heard you.
I'm sorry, can we go back on the record? And call. I do have exhibits, I'm gonna go back on the record. Okay, Board Exhibit 1, Baltimore City Police Department report, Detective Gatto. Investigation report, Inspector John Chrisomalis. Maryland Business License Online report. Exhibit 4, Business Online License report. Thank you.
Let's go.
On the next case, Rochelle Shoebrooks and Mark Shoebrooks, Sliders Bar and Grill LLC, trading as Sliders Bar and Grill, 504 through 06 Washington Boulevard. There's a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license, a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors.
But all those who are going to testify, raise their right hands, please.
You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes.
Your name, sir?
Mark Shoebrooks.
And you're Rachel? Rachel? Okay, and you, sir?
Eric North.
Eric Norm?
Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Shoebrooks, you're charged with a sale to minor on May 9. Do you admit or deny that?
Admit.
Okay, thank you. This is your first violation. Do you want to tell us what happened?
Yeah, prior to 2 years ago, we used to do our own security work. We had our own employees doing it. Well, with all the unrest going on in the city, our insurance company, and we thought it was in our best interest to hire a professional security company. So we hired Ace Event Services. So on that particular day, they had one of their security guards there. He failed to card the gentleman that was coming in. So when the gentleman came in, he came to the bartender. The bartender served the cadet under the impression that he was carded. We then reviewed the camera footage, and we seen where the security guard left his post, was sitting at a table talking to someone else. We immediately called the security company and insisted that that security guard does not work for us anymore. We still do have the security agency. They assured us this won't happen again. And then in addition to that, now we're double carding. So they card, and then when they get to the bar, the actual bartender will card. Eric has been with us since the beginning, and we've never had any issues. And we apologize.
I understand. Were they cooperative?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the commissioners have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
I do not.
All right, thank you, sir. On the basis of the materials that were submitted as well as your testimony and admission, I would find a violation of Rule 4.01A on May 9, 2018, and in light of the fact it's your first violation, I'd impose a $300 fine and give you 30 days to pay it.
Thank you.
I too find a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors, on May 9th, 2018, and I concur with the imposition of a $300 fine with 30 days to pay.
I find a violation of Rule 4.01A and would agree with the imposition of a $300 fine.
Good luck.
Thank you. Sorry for taking your time for this.
All right.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
Tom's fault.
Okay, call exhibits for the record. Board Exhibit 1, Palmer City Police Department Report, Detective Gatto. Board Exhibit 2, Investigation Report, Inspector Stephen Hahn. Thank you.
I need 1 second, please.
Let's go.
Calling next case, Eduardo Reyes, sole proprietorship, trading as El Rancho Blanco, 100 South Fagley Street. There's a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license, a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors.
Would everyone come forward and raise your right hands, please?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Counsel?
For the record, Gary Maslin, and Rothwell, on behalf of the licensee.
Admission or denial?
It is an admission, which are mitigating factors I'd like to present.
Okay.
The person that made the sale in this case is this young lady here. She is a bartender who's been at this establishment for over 3 years. She is TAM certified. I have her certificate here. Mr. Reyes, the licensee, is also TAM certified. He's here. He was there that evening, but had left shortly before this incident occurred.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is your name Chavez? Chavez?
Yes.
Yes.
But it's also Barahona? Are they, both names are yours?
See?
Yes, that C is yes.
What's her name? Oh, now I'm confused.
Well, the name on the certificate is different from the name on the charging document. That's why I'm asking. But it's the same person you're asserting?
That is you, correct? She goes by both names, yes.
Okay.
And so what would your name be?
¿Cómo se llama?
I just see that.
Yeah.
Reina Barahona.
Reina Barahona.
So the one on.
Okay.
Verified. This licensee has been a licensee since 2006. That would make 12 years. This licensee has never been before the board on a sale to minor incident in the 12 years that he has held this license. The individual that sold the alcohol on this particular occasion is very vigilant in carding people. How this incident occurred was that she believed that the cadet, when he came in, was an individual who he had been there before, and she mistakenly went ahead and served him. It turned out he hadn't been there before, and she regrets, and she's very upset about this entire incident. This is a bar which prides itself on their attempts to be vigilant that they don't sell to minors. I have a letter that may be in your file, and maybe not. It's on my cell phone, and I apologize to you for not producing it, but it's dated March the 1st of 2018, approximately a little more than 2 months after prior to this incident occurring, wherein the liquor board wrote a letter to this licensee complimenting them that there was an attempt to purchase alcoholic beverages, which they declined, and says on behalf of the Board of Licensed Commissioners of Baltimore City, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your demonstrating responsible alcoholic beverages sales at your establishment. And that was sent out just 2 months prior. So given the...
Resting on their laurels.
Pardon me?
Resting on their laurels, huh?
Yeah, no, it was an honest mistake.
Now, we both congratulate and we condemn, I guess.
Yes, they do. But now they were condemned, and coincidentally, less than 2 months later, they're back again. Not that I'm saying they shouldn't be vigilant and come back over and over and over, but she has learned from this, and what she does, she cards everybody now. No matter if she knows them, doesn't know them, she doesn't trust her memory. Although she's only 33 years of age, she is going to card every single person, even if they know him, to make sure and be doubly vigilant. So since this is their first alcohol sales of minor violation, I'd ask the board to, and they got lauded for their conduct over the years, to consider maybe even suspending the fine in this matter, given it was only 2.5 months prior that they were
Cooperative? Okay, so the problem is that it's not her fault, I mean, her responsibility, it's the licensee's responsibility, and his record is not good.
Well,
including a 4-month suspension in a prior case.
Well, that was back in 2014. I didn't represent him. I asked him about that, and that was an incident which took place outside of the establishment. It wasn't even inside. There was a fight and something occurred outside. It wasn't inside. I wasn't either. But the facts, had I been here,
Judge. Then he was cited
Judge,
again in 2016
I believe,
and 2017.
I don't believe he should have been held in violation of that. The other things that you see on his record are very, they're restroom facilities, health violations. There were relatively minor things which are corrected immediately, and the other one was a sanitation safety violation, and there was again, it was very minor. Both of these things are minor. The other one that was remote in time is 2014. It's over 4 years
There's
ago.
also one from 8 years ago.
And there's one for 2010, which involves prohibited hours. But again, if you look, I don't think that was a finding. It's officers FTA dismissed. You see that, Your Honor?
But okay, so there was an administration. Okay, I hear what you're saying. All right.
That was dismissed in 2010.
Okay. Commissioners have questions on this one?
I don't have any
I do
questions.
not.
Okay, thank you. On the basis then of the documents submitted to the board, the testimony, the admission, the proffer from counsel, I find a violation of Rule 4.01, small a, on May 9, 2018. I hear what you say, Mr. Maslin. I can't ignore the record entirely. I would impose a $500 fine and give them 30 days to pay it.
I too find a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors, on May 9th, 2018. And I concur with the $500 fine, 30 days to pay.
I find a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors. I actually think the fine should be higher, but I will concur with my colleagues at $500.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Maslin. I'd call the exhibits for the record.
All right, thank you, guys.
Board Exhibit 1, Baltimore City Police Department report, Detective Greenhill. Board Exhibit 2, investigation report, Agent Steve Hahn. Licensee Exhibit 1, alcohol awareness certification. Thank you. Can I have the alcohol awareness certificate? Mr. Maslin?
Off the record on this?
Yes, we're off the record.
Sorry.
You ready?
Okay. Yep. Calling Tiffany Gooseby and Sushila Twari, BG and SK Incorporated, trading as Liquor Stop, 6400 Holabird Avenue. There's a Class A beer, wine, liquor license, a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors.
Would all those testifying please raise your right hand?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Counsel?
Frank Solis, representing the licensee.
Would this be an admission or denial, Mr. Shawless?
Well, it's an admission, Your Honor, with an explanation.
Okay, it's the first violation, so tell us about it.
Okay, this lady was ill that day. Her partner was in Virginia, Roanoke, and
What is this lady's name? Your client, what's her name? Okay, he said this lady, but there's two ladies listed here, so I didn't know which one you were.
Don't mind me.
That's okay.
The lady standing with me. Just show it. Her partner was out of town in Roanoke, Virginia. She was ill and went to the doctors. She had a cousin come in and watch the store. No alcohol training or anything else. All he could do was operate the register. A perfect storm for her. She has no violations. When she's there, she cards it. She is alcohol certified. Her partner is alcohol certified, but it was just the wrong time for somebody to come in.
I hear. Okay, were they cooperative?
Yes, Chairman.
Commissioners have anything?
I don't have any questions.
No questions.
Okay, thank you. On the basis then of the materials submitted to the board, your proffer and admission, I would find a violation of Rule 4.01 small a on April 18, 2018. First offense, I'd impose a $300 fine and give her 30 days to pay it.
Thank you very much.
I too find a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors on April 18, 2018, and I concur with a $300 fine and 30 days to pay.
Find a violation of Rule 4.01A and would agree with the imposition of a $300 fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. I call exhibits for the record. Board Exhibit 1, Baltimore City Police Department Report, Detective Greenhill. Board Exhibit 2, Investigation Report, Inspector Andy Perez. Thank you.
Calling the next case. Jeffrey Bowen, Bender's Tavern LLC, trading as Bender's, 301 South Ann Street. There's a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license. Violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors.
Please raise your right hands, everyone.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And Mr. Bowen, sir?
Actually, I'm Mr. Shelfon. I'm in the violation. Mr. Bowen did not receive this. Somehow it came to me, and I don't think he was aware he was supposed to be here. I tried making a call and finding out if we could get him here or even postponing it, but it didn't happen. But I'm the person in the
You
charging
are,
document.
but it's his responsibility. Are we saying he was not served?
I don't want to speak for him. I'm not sure.
No,
This
I'm
is my-
asking us.
Oh, no, I was going to say, this is my first infraction, so I wasn't sure how it all.
Do we have service on?
I'm looking for that right now.
Okay, thanks.
I have the paper that was sent to me. I don't know if you need that. Well, no, it was delivered to the bar when. Yeah, that's what I was saying. It was told me, because it was left with a bartender.
They were served at the bar, Your Honor.
Yeah, oh, yes, sir.
But it was not gotten to the actual owner.
It got to the bartender, and the bartender assumed because it was my infraction and gave it to me. I don't even know if the,
Can we set it back in, Mr. Akros?
We can, Your Honor. I'm just looking for the service right now. If you want to just set it in, we can set it back in right now.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, he needs to be given notice.
okay, yeah, absolutely. I wanted to make sure I was doing everything in the proper.
You didn't do anything wrong.
Okay.
We just want to make sure he gets proper service.
But are we saying that we need to postpone? Is that what we're saying? Okay.
Yes.
That's great with me, if it's great with you guys.
We can set this in on August 30th.
Okay. He'll be served, but would you let him know August 30th?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, appreciate
Here
it.
you go.
Court's indulgence. Yeah, all right, that's fine.
Should we do the exhibits now? Do we still call the exhibits?
I don't
for
think we
this
need
case?
to.
Right, 'cause
No.
okay, thank you. No exhibits.
Can we put this in the file for the next
The
one?
next time, okay. I have a copy. I'll just put this one in.
Calling the next case, Brian Burkett, BJB-1 Incorporated, trading as Sir Duke, 701 South Bond Street. This is a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license, a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors.
Good afternoon, Stephen W. Fogelman on behalf of licensee Brian J. Burkert, who's present.
Good afternoon. Would you all raise your right hands, please?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that
Denial, I mean, I'm sorry, admission, sorry.
There is a difference.
There is.
Okay, so is there an explanation?
Yes, it's a terrible explanation, and you're going to hear it in the last case of the day as well. It's called the scourge of technology. And back in the day, when you hired a bartender or a doorman, you got to use their eyes and their ears all the time on your clock. But long ago, not too long ago, smartphones came along. Okay, and in this case, Mr. Burkert provided me with the surveillance video showing exactly what happened. And what happened in this case is the doorman was simply surfing the web. And you see the cadet walk straight past him. And he is, quite frankly, unaware. He is now a former doorman of the establishment, and Mr. Burkert, who's owned the place for many, many years and who's had a business presence in the greater Fells Point community for decades now, has made it very clear that if you use your smartphone while you're a doorman, you're fired. If there's some kind of problem at home, you can take a break and we'll get you relief, and then you can deal with your problems. But I don't care if it's looking at a baseball score or anything, he needs 100% of your time and attention. And in fact, many corporations with white-collar jobs prohibit cell phone use during employee time on the employee's premises. So it's unfortunate. As you can see, he has a fantastic record. There was something about a trader's license 10 years or 8 years ago when I was on the board.
Property.
Yeah, something like that. But I mean, really, and that's the thing, the places that use doormen usually do have a better track record than the places that don't, because we have multiple layers of protection against this charge. And in this case, that layer one fails. And unfortunately, then you get to the bartender, and the bartender sees the doorman's there, so obviously he must be okay, right? In any event, it's a great learning experience for this client and for others that cell phones have no place with a doorman.
Okay, were they cooperative? Okay. Commissioners?
No questions.
Okay, thank you then. On the basis of the information contained in the charging documents, the proffer from counsel, the admission, I'd find a rule of 4.01 small a on April 26, 2018. I'd impose a $300 fine and give you 30 days to pay it.
I too find a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors, on April 26, 2018, and I concur with the imposition of a $300 fine and 30 days to pay.
Find a violation of Rule 4.01A and would agree with the imposition of a $300 fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'd like to call exhibits for the record. Board Exhibit 1, Baltimore City Police Department report. Detective Greenhill. Board Exhibit 2, investigation report. Agent Krista Malice. Thank you.
Calling the next case, Daniel Corker, Bartenders Incorporated, trading as Bartenders, 2218 Boston Street. There's a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license. A violation of 4.01A, sales to minors.
Would all those who are going to testify raise their right hands, please?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Counsel for the record?
Good afternoon. Harry Previs on behalf of bartenders and the licensee Daniel Corker, who's standing to my right.
Good afternoon. Is it admission or denial?
This is an admission.
Okay. Do you wish to explain what happened on April 27th?
Yeah, so the employee who furnished the alcoholic beverage was a barback and bartender. The bar was busy when the task force came in, and Mr. Corker was not very attentive at that point because he had his hands full. Mr. Coker takes great pride in running his establishment, keeping up with the law. His establishment, the average age is probably 40 years old.
About so.
So he isn't tested all that often, but now they're carding absolutely everybody, even if they're 30-plus years old. Additionally, Mr. Coker has run this business since 2005, and there's only been 2 violations. I believe the first one in 2005 was an underage.
No, they're both prohibited hour violations.
Okay. Well, in that
Find
event,
that correct.
I wasn't
First
around
one,
for that. so-
Prohibited hours. It happened 10:30 at night on a Friday night. We discussed that in the first one because they had it messed up. It wasn't after hours, prohibited hours. It was 10:30 on a Friday night. It was my ex-partner. That was 2000. That was a month and a half after we opened up, and that was at 10:30 on a Friday night. We were mashed, and I remember that. And it was right at the front door, and it was an underage kid that came in and gave an ID, and he read the ID wrong, and it was an underage ID, and that's how I got pinched. But that was it was definitely about 10:30, 11 o'clock on a Friday night. The second one was definitely after hours.
I understand also in the present case that Mr. Coker may not have been fully respectful to the officers and
And for that, I apologize. I was overly and immediately shocked and frustrated with my employee. So gut reaction, a wrong gut reaction, and I apologize for that, officers, was to go ahead and get a little angry. And then complain, and I apologize that night too, to everyone, saying I'm sorry, I apologize, and I got everything they needed. Compliant after that, obviously.
He calmed down?
Yes, he was upset. Seemed like he was more upset at his employee towards the end before we left, but it was good by the time we left.
Okay. Commissioners have questions?
I don't have any questions.
I do not.
Okay, thank you. On the basis then of the materials submitted to the board, the proffer and testimony and the admission, I find a violation of Rule 4.01 small a on April 27, 2018. And in light of the record, I would impose a $500 fine and give him 30 days to pay it.
thank you.
I too find a violation,
Sorry about
two
that.
other commissioners here. I too find a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors on April 27, 2018. And given the record and some of the testimony here today, I concur with the imposition of a $500 fine, 30 days to pay.
And Mr. Previs, we won't tell your dad. Your legacy, we won't tell that you're leaving after the chairman's vote. I too find a violation of Rule 4.01A and agree with the imposition of $500 fine.
Good luck, thank you.
And again, guys, sorry about that, man.
I call exhibits for the record. Board Exhibit 1, Baltimore City Police Department report, Detective Greenhill. Board Exhibit 2, investigation report, Agent Krista Malice. Thank you.
Calling the next case, Christine Bogosh and Thomas A. Welsh, Plug Uglies Hospitality Group LLC, trading as Plug Uglies Public House, 2908 O'Donnell Street. Is a Class B beer, wine, and liquor license, a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors.
Would all those who are going to testify raise their right hands, please?
Swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And you are Ms. Bogush?
I'm not. I'm Jennifer King. I'm the general manager, appearing on behalf of Mr. Welsh and his co-owner, Mr. Bogosh. King, K-I-N-G.
Okay, are you going to admit or deny the violation?
Admit.
Okay, do you want to tell us what happened on April 18th?
There is no excuse. The bartender was very busy and was trying to close out some checks from the dinner crowd and thought he looked of age and just didn't card him. She has been reprimanded. Everybody has been given remedial education. They are carding 100% of the time. Again, there's no excuse.
It's the first violation. Do commissioners have questions?
When you say remedial education, does that mean they've been TAM certified? Is that what you're referring to?
There's two of them that are. Alicia, who is the bartender that committed the violation, has been tip certified since then.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And on the basis of the materials was she cooperative, by the way? Okay, I'm sorry. On the basis of the materials submitted in support of the violation and your testimony and admission, I would find a violation of Rule 4.01A on April 18, 2018. It being the first, I would impose a $300 fine and give 30 days to pay.
I too find a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors on April 18, 2018, and given that this is the first violation on this licensee's record, I concur with the imposition of a $300 fine and 30 days to pay.
I find a violation of Rule 4.01A and would agree with the imposition of a $300 fine.
Good luck, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Here you go, ma'am. Ready to call the exhibits for the record? Board Exhibit 1, Baltimore City Police Department report, Detective Greenhill. Thank you.
Calling the next case, Ronald Furman and William Hard, Better Corporation, trading as Max's on Broadway, 731 through 37 South Broadway. It's a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license, a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors.
Good afternoon, everyone. Please raise their right hands.
You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Admission or denial?
This is an admission.
And let me guess, the doorman was looking at his cell phone.
You must be reading my files from my mind.
Scourge.
It is a
Scourge of
scourge.
technology?
It's a scourge when your daughter gets a hold of your phone. That's when it's a scourge.
No comment.
In fact, that is what the explanation is.
Indeed. What happened on the evening of April 18th, I have a signed letter, or actually, he didn't sign it, but he submitted it to my clients. This is the doorman's recounting of what happened, and one for the file.
Thank you.
It's another case of looking at your phone. They also provided me with the video of the outside surveillance video. This one, the doorman maybe did a better job. He checked IDs, looked at his phone. Somebody walked in, went back to checking IDs. And like I said, Max's has an incredible door policy.
Our timing was good, though, wasn't it?
It was very good. and it's so good that they got busted because, well, before I go into that, well, let me go into that now. I thought it was amusing back when I was on the liquor board. They were famous because in 2008, Michael Phelps, at 23 years old, walked into their bar, Max's on Broadway, and was refused service because he did not have an ID on him. His friends were with him at the time and said, "This is Michael Phelps," and the manager said, "He definitely looks like Michael Phelps to me, but without an ID, I can't let him in." Allegedly, he went up the street and got served somewhere else. However, it made the Baltimore Sun. So I wanted to submit that to demonstrate that.
Been back?
I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, I think he actually moved away because he couldn't get served.
So Max's also now has a new written policy for their employees that says unless it is absolute emergency, no one's to be on their phone. You must card everyone that comes into Max's. That means everyone. One host must stay at the front door at all times. You'll be fired if you violate those rules. So you look at their history. They had a fire door issue about 2 years ago. It's an old building, and they came before the board on that. They spent over $6,000 remediating that problem to bring it up to code. You all were kind enough to waive a fine back then because of their tremendously good past history as licensees. Since 85, and I feel like you guys were in business before that, but maybe that's just me. 85, so 33 years. Oh, this is Gail Furman, Gail Furman. She is partner and spouse of Ronald C. Furman, licensee.
Okay, and were they cooperative?
They were chairman, and I have to say they've been very good to us during some unrest during Halloween a couple years ago. They opened up their doors and let us go in and stay safe. So they've been very good with us, and they also cooperate very well with the police.
Okay. Anything further?
No, I just ask that you consider all the kind words that Mr. Chrysomalis just said.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nothing further. All right, thank you. On the basis then of the materials submitted in support of the violation, the testimony, admission, and the proffer of counsel, I'd find a violation of Rule 4.01 small a on April 18, 2018, in light of the longstanding good record and exceptional cooperation. I'd impose a $150 fine and give you 30 days to pay it.
I too find a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minors on April 18, 2018. I will impose a $300 fine. This is, I understand the record, but still a violation of this kind. It's a $300 fine with 30 days to pay.
Well, I'm getting a text from Michael Phelps who wants to. Sorry, excuse me. I find a violation of Rule 4.01A and would concur with the chairman's imposition of a $150 fine.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
I'd like to call exhibits for the record. Board Exhibit 1, Baltimore City Police Department Report, Detective Greenhill. Board Exhibit 2, Investigation Report, Inspector Andy Perez. Licensee Exhibit 1, letter from Matthew Capelli. Licensee Exhibit 2, Sun newspaper article dated 9/26/2008. Licensee Exhibit number 3, Max Tap House, new policy for hostess. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, that concludes our afternoon docket.
Okay, thank you.
Board will be in recess until August 9th.